Hi everybody, I am back with this wonderful tarot deck called Oculi Occultati, published by Scarlet Imprint and created by Radomil Boguslawski, a Polish artist. This is a limited number of 900 and this is number 44, published on the 11th of August 2018. I'll speak a bit more about that in my part 3 review video. For now, let's take a look at the box really quickly. As I've mentioned during the unboxing and during my first reaction or impression of it, I think I might have mentioned holographic, but it's really not. It's more like that pearly shimmer where you can see rainbows, a bit like when you see rainbows on surfaces of soap bubbles. You might be able to see in the O here, there's glimmers of pinks and blues and greens there, just like you would see in sea creatures, or the inside of a sea creature. Basically that pearl luminescent sort of quality there. Very, very well done. The Fool is at the front, and Oculi Occultati Tarot here is a tuck box, but it's done really well. Radomil Boguslawski, the name of the artist, on one side. There's the design of the back of the cards. Scarlet Imprint 2018 on this side. It doesn't say anywhere where this was printed, where this deck was produced, but it's very, very well done. The first hand feel was so amazing. It's big, it's matte, it's thick enough, it's just perfect. The only thing is that I left this overnight in the study and it bowed a little bit, but everything else is so perfect that I don't really care. So the top layer shrank at a greater rate than the bottom, which to me, again, given how I've been loving this, doesn't really matter. But this is not a review. This is more of a walkthrough, a flip through with some running commentary on my current thoughts on the images. And so when I first opened this, if you recall, I said there's this sort of shimmery, metallic, matte quality that I couldn't quite explain. I couldn't quite show on camera either. By the way, I might have to pause periodically because I'm still coughing quite badly, and you might be able to detect those pauses. All I can tell you is that it reminds me of this kind of shimmer. So this is a laptop, and if you know what I mean, I don't know, I can't really quite show you, it doesn't want to focus here. Yeah, you know how sort of metallic brush metal, that kind of, it's matte, but it has that sort of almost shimmery quality to it. Yeah, I can't quite show it, but you know, if you grab the nearest electronic, and it has that kind of, almost, it's matte, but there's just something there that the eye's catching, but you can't quite see it, but it looks like almost metallic in its quality. Give me a minute. And so the majors are black and white. The minors are black and white plus splashes of colors. Yellow for staves of fire, blue for cups of water, pink, red for swords, very much like blood that has a lot of oxygen in it. I quite like that. And green for coins, for earth. So let's start with the majors. The majors actually reminds me very much of older Italian and French decks, or perhaps what some of you would call continental decks instead of the Rider-Waite-Smith. And I like how, so I have sort of made a comment about how I like how striking the horse and the child is, and for me, Sun is about realization, and it's about manifestation and materialization. And so a child charging forward on a horseback with a standard, like a victory parade, leading a victory parade, is very apt. And as I mentioned in my unboxing video, this kind of depiction of the sun isn't new. It didn't start with the Rider-Waite-Smith, but started with older decks such as the Vieux, for example. I quite like that the sun is implied. It's just in the back. It's completely drenched in light, and there's this face looking down. You know, what is that? The face of the sun? Is that the face of something else? We don't know. There is no title. There's no number. And so it really completely forced you to use only your intuition and your knowledge of the archetypes and whatever it is that you've learned about these images so far. The Hangman has this kind of outfit that reminds me of Europe in the 1500s. Death. The king faces that way instead of frontal. The ram, the eagle, scepter, and instead of the globe it has an apple. And the crown there looks very fairy forest like. It makes me want to think of the elves in the forest elves in Lord of the Rings. It makes me want to think of Game of Thrones. One of the houses in the Game of Thrones has this amazing branch-like crown, and I was absolutely mesmerized by that, and that reminds me of that. And note that all of the images, all of the humans in the major arcana have their eyes closed, except for the devil. So the crown here, the Empress, is definitely more Rider-Waite-Smith, with the crown of 9 or 12 stars. I can't quite remember. I think that description is in Revelation, I believe. I can never remember whether it's 9 or 12. And the Virgin Mary is often depicted wearing a crown of so many stars. And so you have this, she's sitting on, I wonder if that's a phoenix. And then there's all this new spiraling, new budding plants. She's the gateway, and there's this like spider webs in the back of her, all signs of life. Signs of, if that's a phoenix, it's signs of birth and rebirth. She's the gateway. She is the portal of comings and goings between the two worlds. Instead of a high priestess, we have the Popess, which is why I said it is very much reminiscent of older European decks. And I have to say, and all of us are biased to our own particular circumstances. And for me, a lot of images, no matter where or what I'm dealing with in this world, are always someone else's life images. They're never native to my life experiences. And there is no place on the planet that I am not a minority. There's none. And that's fine. So that has become part of my reality. So having to use other people's frame of reference in terms of gauging reality is not new for me. It's not something I complain about. It's just life. But when I can see images that felt or feels native to my life experiences, I always feel like I feel especially touched. And although I have stepped out and away from the Catholic Church, these images are images I recognize from my own life, not the Popess necessarily. She has a triple crown, and she has the outfit of a nun with the crucifix, and here's a book's tarot. There's the moon, I'm thinking, reminiscence of Our Lady of Guadalupe with the half moon under her feet. And again, like the Empress, the Popess is also a gateway to me between this world and the other world, but with a different focus. And for me, the Popess and the Empress are two sides of the same coin. This is a Fool. Again, with the eyes closed, I think that's Flower there, the dog. He's about to step and move forward. This Magician very much remind me of the Juggler in older decks, but if you see the tools, the coins, the dagger, cup, and a kind of short staff there, there's a running theme of having large feet and relatively large hands for the proportion, and even more so in the minors, but not so much in the majors. and especially the hat, that reminds me very much of older European decks. This devil is very, very charming looking. This dark, piercing eyes almost, and his thick lips, and all in all quite attractive. And his eyes are open. He's the only one that's open. You can clearly see this is Pan or Pan-like. But also there's this almost Lucifer, or at least the way Doré, Gustave Doré, depicted Lucifer with a pair of bat wings instead of the wings of doves. There's that almost like a tail. Is that the tail of this person or of his? I don't know. There's two creatures there with this pointy ears. Asleep. Everyone's asleep but the devil. Or not asleep, not seeing. I really like that. I really like that he or she or it is the only one with his eyes open. This is the angel, or awakening, or resurrection. All the hands reaching out and the trumpets blowing. And there's this rather a hermaphrodite. It can be a man, it can be a woman, and it's great because angels are not, I don't know if I believe in angels or not in this sense anyway, but nondescript is good. You can argue that he or she or it looks more like a man with long hair. It doesn't really matter, and I really like that. And the fact that the hands reaching out, and the fact that the focus is on the angel, I really like that, because after all, there's the angel card. This is the world, and you see him surrounded with, almost as if he's underground and he's about to burst open into the outside world, and you have the human childlike here coming out. There is a does that look like a baby bird to you? And then there's the two animals there. That looks like a leopard more than a lion, and instead of what do they have? They have human, hawk, ox, and lion. Is that right? Is that an ox or a donkey? I have no idea. I am not very well versed in Hermeticism, so anybody who might have anything to add, please feel free. There's no book to this. And so the world is just about to come out. It's just maturing in incubation. The incubation process is ending. It's now coming on. It almost feels like that because all the branch, look at that, and it's penetrating, it's coming out. This is justice. Pretty simple, almost very, very down to, I mean, of all the images, I think this is probably the most down to earth. Like, she could be the villager next door, carrying a scale and a sword and not much else. It's a very grounded justice, not justice up in the air. It's very real. It's very down here on this planet. Strength. Moon. The creature coming out. Two dogs, or dogs in. The tower isn't there. Just a huge moon. The two sides of ourselves, and then the emerging of our primal self into something more, having to balance the two, walking through in the middle, under the moonlit sky where the world is bright and everything is clear, but just in a slightly different way. It's almost as if we have to use really our internal light to get anywhere fast. Otherwise it's, because things aren't as they seem, but there is wisdom in having to look at reality from another point of view. And so I really like that. It's focusing on the essential in my mind of what the moon card is about. This is the Wheel of Fortune. Person down. The Sphinx with the hand of a lion, face of a woman, and I'm not quite sure what this is, but I think it's the creatures that you often see around the wheel. Her breast is very pendulous, almost unnatural, but you know, what do I know? It's not like I've seen great many naked breasts, so I don't know, but to me it looks quite, I suppose it's prominent for a reason. It is the source of nurturing new lives after all. I'm not quite sure what that is. This is the Chariot with the two Sphinx, light and shadow, and the charioteer looks very soldier-like, like a chariot of war more than anything. So that's quite, yeah, you see that in the Marseille. Triple cross, triple crown. The gloves with the cross, the posture of the hand. It's very much found in older decks. I thought about this Lover's card. I found this fascinating because you see, I think Cupid is asleep up here. And if that's the man, I don't know. In older decks, you have a man in the middle, and you have sometimes blindfolded Cupid, sometimes seeing Cupid aiming the arrow, and there's just two ladies or two women flanking the man. And I think the idea is that Eros, blind like fortune, like justice, they're blind and they can strike anybody at any time. And unlike Wheel of Fortune that goes up and down and up and down, in justice that has a sense of balance, Cupid is very erratic. And so it's, you know, luck of the draw. You never really know which person Cupid is going to point the arrow at. And there's this idea of choice, you know, the duty versus vice versus virtue versus something else, that kind of sort of dichotomy very much discussed in Chariot, as well as this Chariot here. Chariot, the Lovers, and Temperance are three triads for me that I work in unison together often, and I still owe you a video about those three, my major arcana triad. But what strikes me here is that the man is no longer choosing between the women. The man is like, and I'm only assuming this is the man because I am using older deck as reference point to compare with. And I think there is like a third knee sticking out there, so I'm not quite sure what the significance of that is. And instead of holding hands, it's almost looking as if the lady over here wanted to reach for it, and she's, you know, putting it aside, because initially I thought they were holding hands, but her hand here is up in the air. So the hand is up in the air. It's almost as if that hand is moving from one point to the other, and this hand is on top of it. I also thought that, you know, these days women are not defined by men anymore. Women are defining themselves. And in the past, you are defined by your husband, who your father is, who your husband is, and then who is your children or your sons in particular cases. And women are always defined by their men, and turning to each other like this, and the man is not even part of the conversation. It's almost as if, and Cupid is asleep now. Now there's just the women here, and you know, what are we gonna do? We're gonna take charge. We're going to tell ourselves, we define ourselves. And everybody else is part of the story, but they're no longer are in charge of our narrative, so to speak. I just don't know what the third knee sticking out is. Maybe is that the grown person coming out of this, or in my review hopefully I'll have more insights, but I found this to be the most fascinating multi-dimensional lovers card I've ever seen. It's not just same-sex two people, you know, but it's saying so much. It's not just a simple matter of, because for me the lovers has to be the point of reunification of polarity. And if you see yin and yang instead of yin and yang, there's no polarity in yang and yang and yin and yin. And I do understand the need to have non-hetero looking couples in lovers cards, but because the lovers to me isn't about couples, they're not about lovers in a sense of sexual partners or romantic partners. You'll probably talk a bit more about this once I work with it a bit more, but for now there is that sense of turning to each other, turning to ourselves as women, or women saying to themselves, we are no longer going to be defined by anybody other than ourselves, and then giving birth to ourselves through ourselves. I'm not quite sure what to make of the third knee there. Feel free to comment down below. This is temperance, food, land, water. I like his hair. Hermit. His staff reminds me of shepherd's staff. That pendulous breast again, I find that quite fascinating. This is one of the most powerful image in the major arcana. I actually stopped and I actually gasped when I saw this. I don't know why. This is a tower, or La Maison Dieu, the house of God. Little spider there. There's somebody's face down here, and this whole thing is a face there. For me, tower is the end, or the shaking of our own presumptions and assumptions and perception of reality. It is the shaking of our almost arrogance in thinking that the way the world as we build them is the world. You only need to be faced with a huge earthquake and tsunami to be reminded of how insignificant, or how much of a part of so much of a larger thing humans are, and everything that we build could be taken away from us in an instant by nature. And so we go to the minors. So yellow for stars or fire, blue for cups, ace. You see what I mean by the proportion of the hands, the feet, and the head. They look more like gnomes to me. I'm not even quite sure. Two of staffs. The feet make me think maybe they're hobbits, maybe they're nothing, and it doesn't really matter what they are. The feet are quite big, and the ears are pointy. 3, 4. So the minors are very much Rider-Waite Smith. 5. 6. There's no numbers, none of the cards has numbers or titles or labels. So this is 6. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and this one here. That procession, that man on horseback, and so it has a lot clearly Pixie's art. Again, the oversized feet. 7, 8. Very clearly Rider-Waite Smith there. 9, 10. They have their outfit reminds me of 1500s Dutch, the Pilgrims that first landed in America. It reminds me of that. Queen of Wands, Queen of Fire. Look at the cute cat, so cute. And the King of Fire, Salamander. The faces are very real, and then the proportion of the body being distorted like that makes it quite, I don't know, there's something about it, I can't explain it. So Ace of Cups, Two of Cups, so these are mermaids. I'm wondering if the fire are gnomes, do you think? Or they're elves maybe? I don't know. So the 4, very Rider-Waite Smith. 5, 3 and 2. Definitely Rider-Waite Smith. 7, all the choices, all the options. 8, walking away. 9, self-fulfilled. 10, fulfilled with others. Page. Knight. Look at that. Oh. Queen. I'm finding it really hard to explain, so hopefully in my part 3, once I have played with this enough to review it, I'll be able to explain to you why this is so fascinating to me, this art style. And there is the signature there, Boguslawski, Radomil Boguslawski. I wouldn't mind having his artwork on my wall actually. Ace of Cups, yes, Ace of Swords. They have very long necks. If there's any doubt about if this is Rider-Waite Smith or not, you only need to see the 3 of Swords. Very fae-like, very other worlds with the little wings and the pointy ears. They look like fairies, while the other one looked like a gnome. Gnomes, mermaids, fairies. I feel like the minors, I don't know, we'll see during my review in part 3, but for now, I feel like the minors aren't telling me anything new. And so I'm really quite excited working with the majors. But the artwork alone, just the artwork, this is, if it's not for the new or fresh take on Rider-Waite Smith or on the minors, this is just the art. It's so intuitive because I haven't worked with the minors yet, but with the majors, and I can't see how this is going to be anything different with the minors. And again, I will follow up, get back to you on that in part 3. You have to rely on your intuition because there's no title and there's no numbers. There's the Queen of Swords. Look at the large feet there. The outfit here is very 1800s, 18th century, 1700s, 1800s. Well, the other one's a bit more, I don't know, the sort of 1500s. Very much like the Pilgrims. Reminds me of the Pilgrims. These ones reminds me of Dangerous Liaison and, you know, that sort of if you've seen the TV series Harlots, that kind of period what would that be? That'd be the 1700s, wouldn't it? More people have this white powdered face and white wigs. This reminds me of our dancer tarot friend, Joe Monteleone. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. But he's a dancer. For whatever reason, this reminds me of him. I'm not saying he's a hairy man, but maybe it's something about the face. Look at the hair. It's just so out of this world. Isn't that fun? It's just like very, very earthy. Look at... It's 3. Working with other people, 4. Stable, stagnated, 5. Moving away from that stability. And is he the same guy with the apron? No, not quite. This guy's walking away, and he's oh, he's on a crutch. Okay, he's on a crutch, walking away that way. I feel like in the minors it's just a straight take. Aesthetically, I feel like there's a lot more depth in the majors. But if you're a lover or a fan, or you're comfortable with your Rider-Waite Smith, then this is great news for you. 7 of coins, 8 of coins. I mean, the alternative is Marseille, which is pips, and pips means quite boring, right? So I am glad that it's situated and scenic like this. But usually when it's scenic, you fall back on the Rider-Waite Smith, don't you? Except if you are the creator of the Svatojansky Tarot, which is one of my favorites so far. So you can see it's pretty standard. The court perhaps is a bit more exciting. So we have page, we have queen. Is that the knight? Yeah, that's the page. So the knight here is not riding a horse, but he looks like he's lying down because he is one of the slowest knight, isn't he? Look at the lash. Very lush. And I have to say, I'm also glad that that's not a pentacle, because I know some of you have kindly explained to me what a pentacle is, and in principle, intellectually, I understand what it is, but I just can't relate it to real life. And so I'm glad that it is now something I could relate to a bit more. So this guy here, the King of Coins, reminds me very much of the King of Coins in that LGBTQ Marseille called New Choice, is it? New Choice something? With the abs being exposed like this. So the King of Fire, the King of Stars being bare-chested. What does the other king look like? Okay, he's kind of bare-chested too, but he's not very buff, is he? I mean, he's more buff, isn't he? Let's see, how about the King of Water? Okay, he's bare-chested too. So all of them are bare-chested, but for some reason, the King of Coins, or the King of Earth, look the most confronting in his pecs and his abs and everything else. Not in a bad way, but just, you know, just kind of full on, isn't it? It's depending on where you're coming from, I guess that could be a good thing. And what about the King of this one? Oh yeah, okay. That's a pretty full on ab as well, but yeah, anyway. So I don't have as much to say about the minors, but I definitely have a lot to say with the majors, because especially the Lover's card, I find that quite fascinating. It's interesting that the Empress here is more Rider-Waite-Smith, because I usually prefer the ruling Emperor. I mean the ruling Empress, like in older European decks. And yet the Popess here is Popess rather than High Priestess. I mean, this could potentially be High Priestess, right? You don't know. And I like that there's no title, because guess what? It's up to you now. Because a Popess doesn't really exist in my lifetime. And so it's not anything real, but you could easily see this and see her as a priestess. And I love how nice looking that devil is. How appropriate. I almost wonder if this is modeled after a real person. That'll be good to know. And I'm fascinated by the fact that the world is emerging from underground. Or unless I'm missing something. I'm also quite fascinated by the fact that Justice is so down to earth. He's basically like somebody in this world, like not, you know, not Lady Justice, not Lady Fortuna, or not Goddess whatever. Fortuna is not Justice, Fortuna is a Wheel of Fortune, but she's not blindfolded, but obviously her eyes are closed. And so that's what stood out for me. And I really like this. I will hopefully be able to, yeah, and the pendulous breast is a little, I don't know, just intriguing for me. For my review, I'll probably be able to voice a bit more of what I'm feeling right now. And as far as thoughts concerned, and that one there is quite, that, especially that third knee. Yeah, and that is the most stunning tower after the Mary L. The Tower card, the Mary L Tarot. Okay guys, that's it for now, and I will see you again for part 3 in sometime in the future. That has been a walkthrough, flip through, or just of the Oculi Occultati Hidden Eyes Tarot by Radomil Boguslawski, published by Scarlet Imprint, August 2018.